All right, guys, today we're in the shop, and this is a video that has needed to be made for many years. But for whatever reason, it's not been done, and I wanted to take the opportunity. We've got a 6.4 on the stand right now, and hands down, this is the most problematic engine of all, probably of all diesel trucks, as far as we understand it, Ford, Chevrolet, Dodge. There's a good reason for this, and this is what people don't really tell you about. Now, there's a whole series of videos that I've done on the 6.4 liter. Can a 6.4 be a good engine? Absolutely, it can. Can we build it, make it last? Yes. But there's so many, the reason that it's a bad engine, and I'm using quotation marks for that, is the reason why it's a problematic engine is because there's so many different ways to screw it up. And I'm fixing to show you probably the biggest problem that guys make when they install their 6.4 liter engine. And it really deals with dowel pins. Now, a dowel pin is, they use them on all important surfaces. So what a dowel is and what it does is it just is a piece of material that locates onto another piece of material. Now I'm going to take it over here to this little makeshift table so that we can see. But if you'll look, you'll see here a counterbore, right? So it's bigger in one area and then it's a counterbore. And the whole purpose of that counterbore section is just so that this case can have the dowel pin line up in the counterbore here and here. So when that happens, it locates now and it locks what we call, basically, it'll keep it moving in this direction and this direction. So we would say it locks it down in 2 degrees of freedom. Now the 3rd degree of freedom obviously would be the back half, this plate here. So we've got 3 degrees of freedom that's locked down, okay? And once that's pushed in place, I'm not gonna do that because I'm gonna pull it right back out. Once it's locked in place, this housing is centered to this housing here, okay? Makes sense. The crankshaft comes through, we've got the seal here. I get more phone calls for this problem. My 6.4 has a leaking front main seal and we installed an engine. Or my 6.4 has got metal in the oil automatically. It looks like aluminum on startup. Here's the reason why, okay? So this housing, let me pull this off again. I told you it was gonna be tight. So it uses a gear rotor style pump. And the pump sits basically in this housing here. And the way that that works is that when the crankshaft turns, it is squeezing oil. So this is running concentric. Now I'm not able to really hold it like I want to, but if I could hold it centered, you can see on a gear rotor style pump, basically what it's doing is squeezing the oil. And it squeezes the oil, pressurizing it, putting it into the engine. Now here's the problem. We are centering this housing onto this front cover. On the front cover, let's go back over here. The front cover has no way to locate on the block, okay? Now you're gonna go, wait a minute, hang on, that's not right. And you go check it out and you're gonna find out, oh my goodness, he's right. There is, and I'll show you, no locating. There is no counterbore anywhere that you're going to find on that front cover. So what centers this thing is people are using the bolts to center it. The problem with it is there's slop in the bolts and they don't center it. So we have an issue where this crankshaft now will wind up, I can move this whole front cover over in 2 different directions, which may not seem like a lot to you. That's a tremendous amount to the front timing housing, excuse me, and then the oil pump and the seal. Because if I'm pushing it one way or the other, up and down, then the crankshaft's gonna infringe on the seal and it's gonna wear the seal out. It's actually gonna wipe the seal out most of the time right on startup. It'll wind up ripping the seal right out. The other part is it'll take that pump and jam the pump up against one side of the housing and it'll cause premature failure. So now it's orbiting, so to speak, because it's not centered in the correct location. So how do you fix this? It's real simple. When you're doing this, before you go tightening it down, the best thing you can do is find you a set of feeler gauges and put feeler gauges in between these 2 locations, right? And then you can rotate your crankshaft and do it again. You don't want to do it off the flat, obviously, you won't get a good reading. But you're going to put a feeler gauge here, and you just, whatever if you use a 10 thousandths on one side, use a 10 thousandths on the other. Find out what that clearance is, divide it in two, and that's the size feeler gauge that you're going to use. But once you do that and you've got it located in there, then you can go ahead and torque your bolts down. But if you don't do it that way, you're chancing ending up damaging the oil pump, the front main seal, and also the engine. So it's not really something I've heard too many guys talk about, but it seems like that's the absolute most important thing that you could do when installing an engine. All your big trucks, Caterpillar, Cummins, PACCAR, all of those guys are going, because they're massive parts and it's very important. Cummins is really good about putting a dowel in every location on their front housings. If you'll notice, the 6.7 Ford, they wound up doing that. They wound up fixing that problem. You've got a dowel pin up the top, and then you've got ones on the side, and that's the reason why they did that. So keep that in mind when you're installing your front cover on your new engine. Thanks for watching.